You run a very successful business. The profits are good. Why even get into NFTs? That takes a lot of technical know-how. You're not, why? Why make that move? Why'd you need to get into crypto?
Why? We didn't get into NFT. NFT got into us is really what happened. We were having a great time with the Bernardo people in making this porcelain bottle because truly what really interested us was how is wine going to age differently in porcelain versus glass over a period of 30 years, right? But what was also happening to us is as we were pushing the envelope around authentication of our wines, one of the areas that was the most promising is blockchain. And blockchain is obviously at the core of NFTs. So it all started to make sense. So the why was really about a passion for aging wines and helping our consumers protect their properties.
And so let's start on that point about tracing authenticity, provenance issues. Obviously, that also is a topic among the couture fashion houses who have also got into blockchain tech. So tell me more about that. Like prior to this, did you have another tech you were using to trace the origin of your products, or is that the reason that you really decided to go all into NFTs?
Yeah, so we're not really concerned about the origin of our products. They come from the Tokelon vineyard, which is one of the Grand Cru style wines in the heart of Napa Valley. You find labels like Schrader for $1,000, $500. So it's our vineyard, so we're protected there. The part that is harder to control is once it's sold, what happens to it? And we have all watched Sour Grapes or the shorter version on American Greed of the guy who was filling up empty bottles with, mediocre wine. We've all watched it, or if we haven't, you should. So how do we protect our consumers when they're buying a Robert Mondavi winery wine for them to be sure that it is indeed a Robert Mondavi wine? So there are many people who have different solutions, right? And I'm talking to all of them and asking them my favorite question, which is, what is it that you would really like to do and what is preventing you from doing it? And in this case, this company who's located in France said, well, we're authentication professionals, we'd love to know more about how what we're doing connects with blockchain. And his challenge was the wine industry in general is fairly conservative, so the whole blockchain, NFT, and wine just wasn't there for them. So that's why we're in there, and that's what we hope to learn from.
And how important has this project been with respect to growing your consumer base? Like, are you drawing in younger wine collectors, or what have you seen on that side of the equation?
Yes, very much so. So it's interesting for us to think about crypto billionaires, right? Because they really don't look like your traditional billionaire. But when we look at those new consumers who joined us in this journey, the token holders, they're a good 10, 15 years younger than our average consumer. I would say, ladies, I would love to see you more involved because they also skew more male. So ladies, just, go. What was her panel was the good bitch panel. Jordan, remind me. The Bad Bitch Empire.
That's a great title.
Yes, bringing women to the industry. But it's a different consumer in the sense that they don't come with the baggage of perceptions either. And they're a lot more open to learning about the different facets of wine, right? So wine is not just drinking, but it's also collecting, it's also investing. And those people are investors, de facto. And they're very interested in understanding what are the dynamics around investing in wine, what makes a wine a collectible, and so forth. So, yeah.
Let's talk about that element of community around being a part of this NFT collection. I mean, are you getting new insight into who's buying your wine? And also, what is the utility of it? Like, beyond having this NFT, like, are you a part of an exclusive club? Or, like, how do you guys kind of envision that component?
Yeah, for sure. So two conversations, right? Utilities and community. And look, there's brands joining the NFT bandwagon are not that common, and it's all a big learning experiment for all of us. What we're super excited to have learned throughout this process, it's not, and I'm speaking to marketers here, it's not your regular campaign. You do your TV campaign and then you go on and do other things. But it really is truly building a community from which you can learn, but can also learn from you. It's this sort of two ways road. And one way of communicating, which is very unique and very rich for us and our NFT token holders, is utilities. So right now, the utilities that are wired in the project include some tastings to the winery, but there are so many more we are putting in the plans to offer. Come and visit at the winery, events, but also AMAs around wine investing, wine collecting, and so forth. So utilities is an incredibly rich soil, going back to the vineyards here, but incredibly rich soil for us.
You know, I think about all of these brands that have been, it was almost like a land grab in terms of getting into the metaverse, getting into NFTs, and everybody just felt this, like when I say everybody, I'm talking about retail brands, didn't want to be left behind. I was in this, I went to this startup in Brooklyn that is scanning, it's this photogrammetry rig, and they're scanning products and people into the metaverse, like creating these OBJ files that you can use in augmented reality and other capacities. But they're working with companies like Nike and other fashion companies in order to digitize their product lineups. And so I think at first it was just this wave of, oh, we need to catch up. And now it seems like, oh, this isn't just a gimmick. And you and I were talking about that just before we started. It wasn't just like, oh, we're doing an NFT, now let's move on to the next marketing move. It seems like it's becoming more ingrained in an extended campaign. And it kind of goes on to that issue that you were just talking about, community, and how that weaves in with the brand. But do you have any other thoughts around that?
No, I mean, it's so amazing to find like-minded partners. For a lot of the traditional brands, this is the Wild West, right? But what we all have in common is we have this thirst for doing things differently, for learning. So this builds many, many bridges between all those different brands that have already dabbled in NFT or Metaverse. So I see it as another very rich territory for collaborations and learning from each other.
So is success selling out an NFT collection in 24 hours, or is it so much more than that? Like, how are you measuring whether this is working?
Yeah, this is really great because when we launched, it was like, oh my God, we're going to sell out. Like, oh my God, oh my God. And the truth is, if we had fully sold out on the day it was launched, we would have never learned. And we would have been those marketers that go, okay, let's go do the next thing. And for all the calls we had, we spoke with so many of the token holders over the holidays. We really found out, hey, what is it that you want? And this idea of community is very rich and you know, for the token holders and for us. But also, if you look at it from a business standpoint, it's an amazing amount of data, qualitative and quantitative, so we get to understand better this consumer. So when we get out of the NFT territory and go into the real world, we have access to a prime data of a very affluent and again, qualitative more than quantitative, but understand that consumer that is very affluent but much younger than the traditional wine collectors.
So after analyzing this data of like who was like buying up, you know, NFTs from this collection, have you adjusted your business strategy for in real life sales? Like, has that affected your decision making process at all?
It definitely is affecting it. It hasn't yet because it was only a couple months ago, right? 3 months ago. We're fast, not that fast. But it definitely is informing our plans moving forward in terms of CRM, in terms of luxury bespoke experiences. Like those token holders with whom we've spoken, and it's not a small panel, right? Like it's a lot of them. We communicate with them, really inform what is relevant to this coming up crowd of drinkers.
So you're a publicly traded company, so you have shareholders to answer to. And you think about companies like MicroStrategy and Tesla that have added Bitcoin to their balance sheet and have dealt with waves of reactions. And I wonder how did people respond to the idea of you guys wanting to get some skin in the crypto game?
Yeah, so we were incredibly lucky because at the highest level of the organization, there's always been this appetite for innovation and doing things differently, right? We acquired a couple years back Empathy Wines from Gary Vee, which was a different model of go-to-market. So we've always had that appetite for doing things differently and set and anchor our leadership in it. It wasn't easy. There's a lot of traditional behaviors, legal, regulatory questions, and there still is this sort of dark web association with crypto, which is now becoming quite antiquated. It's still live, but antiquated. So for us and our organization, our industry, and in general, this is why we were really interested in this asset-backed NFT, because it helps bring people on the table, right? You're not just buying the JPEG, you're buying entry into experiences in a well-established winery. You're having access to some of the top worlds of the wine. So that's how it's important to us.
Now, the intersection of NFTs with the metaverse is just fascinating to me. And so I wonder is that like the next step? Like, are you going to enter Decentraland and other metaverses with your products? Or what's the next step? What are you going to do with these NFTs?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. So the metaverse, as Sydney was explaining in our previous panel, is already there. It's just a different forms, different shape. It's not, just this big virtual gaming thing. It has tons of technology implications. We're looking into how can it help us in the way we manage our vineyards, right? Like when we go to the land, how do we reconnect the extreme amount of data as we have on those vineyards with the changing situations. So tons of applications for us. For us in the first time is really connect with those token holders and learn from them, potentially apply it to our strategies moving forward within the year or so, and find other places of activation.
Okay, so in terms of those other places of activation, you mentioned that NFT holders have access to exclusive wine tastings. Like, where are we on the path to, throwing on an Oculus headset and having some sort of sensory wine tasting where you've got, I don't know, like, tell me what is the 5 to 10 year plan? Like, how close are we to something like that?
We would love to. So all of us have practiced a lot through Zoom or WebEx or any other format, right? It's not ideal. I think one of the senses that is the most difficult to replicate is smell and taste, right? So I can arrange to have a bottle sent to your house and we can taste together, but we're not going to have that conviviality. That said, VR experiences are not new, and what the metaverse is bringing is this in real life and true interaction. So this is something we're watching very, very carefully and love to be in.
So looking beyond what you were doing with the winery and with this NFT collection, just more broadly, brands, whether it's other wineries, whether it's like the fashion industry that are kind of making these moves into NFTs, into the metaverse, into Web3 platforms that they can become a part of. I mean, where do you think this is going? Because it's no longer a fad. It seems like this is very much, it has to be a part of your marketing strategy. So I wonder, what are some of the trends that you're seeing take hold, and where are we going the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I always go back to one thing Avery Akineni, who's the president of Vayner NFT, brought up, is it's not about the right click to JPEG. It's about ownership and authentication, right? So we at the Robert Mondavi Winery are taking ownership towards authentication, but I see buying a house, I see buying a car, and not having to deal with the DMV, right? Because the deeds, the process will be different. In some ways, when digital records came, everybody was like, oh my God, like there's no piece of paper, like how can I prove it, right? So now there's just traceability. So that's pretty much where I see it going in terms of NFT per se. And the metaverse, I think from a few years from now, we'll hop on a metaverse-like meeting, like we're hopping on a Zoom meeting, so.
Are there any questions in the audience before we wrap up? Yeah.
Yeah, your question is about valuing the unvaluable, which is counterfeiting, right? We can't really quantitatively know exactly, but overall, as a industry and talking about industry of luxury as a whole, we're thinking about 30%. So, yep. No, it's 30% of our business in general, right? So not our business as the Robert Mondavi winery, but the high-end wine business. Yeah.
Okay, you get the last question.
So the project was wired with Ethereum. Does that answer your question? I want to talk a little bit more about counterfeit because it's the bane of the luxury world in general, right? It's a Louis Vuitton problem. It's an Hermes problem. And in France, there's something called the Comité Colbert, let's say it in French, where all those different luxury industries work together to fight counterfeit. Because it's not about lost sales, but it's about definitely damaging the trust people have in your brand, whether you're a handbag, clothing, or wine. So that one keeps us at night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.